Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to continue a discussion of athleticism program design, and we are going to talk specifically about walking. This is the second video or third video in a series about program design for athleticism as the desired attribute. In previous videos, we had talked about Herbertism, 10 actions, walking, running, quadruped movement, climbing, jumping, balance, lifting, carrying, throwing, defense, swimming. We had talked about the core aspects that we are looking for from the 10 things from CrossFit. We had talked about 10 base movement actions from RKC as taught by Pavel. And then we had talked about circular movements, circles, pendulums, mills, reverse mills, get-ups, and casts. Overall actions, aspects that we're trying to emphasize in training, linear movements, linear for the most part, and circular movements. Today we're going to do a breakout and we are going to talk specifically about walking. So we are going to erase a bunch of this board and just talk about walking. This is going to be a nerdy discussion for the people who want to know this nerd stuff. Walking is a basic human movement that everybody should be capable of, but which people fail at in the modern world because of the success of our civilization. Our civilization is so successful that we no longer have to do walking for distance for the most part. We don't walk as a part of life. We don't walk for survival. So we miss out on a large part of the benefits of low-level cardio for extended periods of times at different times of day for unpredictable intervals. Putting walking in training is something that's not often done. Oftentimes it will be put into training for overweight individuals. The way that I do that programming is I have people walk a very short distance on the first day and add a small fraction of time each day. Walking, say 5 minutes away from your house, when the bell goes off, you turn around, you walk right back. And you could do that for a week. So that would end up being about a 10-minute walk, and it's all based on time, not based on distance. And then the next week you could add an interval of time. You could walk away from the house for 5 minutes and 30 seconds. You could walk away from the house for 6 minutes and then turn around and walk back. And over the course of 10 weeks, you would end up building up to, say, a 30-minute walk. And if you did that 2 to 3 times a week, that would tend to meet the requirements for most people for cardio zone 2 requirement for longevity and athleticism development, developing cardiorespiratory endurance. If that doesn't work, then we could add several things to it. We could add load. Load could be added in a couple of different ways in order to raise the demand of walking itself. Backpacks, how people have been doing it for hundreds of years. Pack baskets is the way they used to do it back in the Stone Age, all the way in North America up until the 1700s. You could do farmer's carries, an excellent way to add load to your walking, but it also adds a lot of load to your hands, so you tend to have to start out with very light weights and add small amounts of weight over time. That becomes a design consideration all on itself because you would like to be able to add 1 pound to each side at a time. There are also other ways to farmer's carry asymmetrical loads. If you're doing farmer's carries with kettlebells, you have 2 arms down, you have rack carries, you have overhead carries, and then you have all the combinations of those things. 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, 1 overhead, 1 down, 1 clean, 1 up. Tons of ways you can organize walking into a program there, but that tends to follow into that idea of farmer's carries. One of the things that's not often done, but which I really like, is the tool carry. Tool carry kind of goes back to an idea from hunter-gatherers, and it would be carrying a bow or a spear or an axe or a sword in one hand. In a modern context of tool carry, we could do something like maces and or clubs in order to replicate something like spears, but have it be a controllable load. Maces come in several weights. If you were to use an 8X adjustable mace system or club system, then you could control that load very precisely. And those would be design considerations for walking. You could take walking that people used to do for a living and you can turn it into a programmable thing with time, with distance, with load, and with position of carry. Another way we address walking is just to work on standing. This is how I often program things. With standing, you could get all of the RKC movements. You could get pressing overhead, single and double. You could get cleans, you could get Turkish get-ups, you could get squats, you could get swings or deadlift pattern, and you could get snatches. All of those would improve your standing posture, which would then translate into walking better. If you were to think about this in our rotational lifts, we have circles, pendulums, get-ups, mills, reverse mills, and casts. All of those things would also improve your standing posture, which would then translate to better walking posture, which would then translate into better running posture. So think line loading and then think rotational loading. Another thing we do when we do with walking is stepping patterns. Up until now, all of this has been talking specifically about walking generally forward, or if you want to get fancy, walking back. But there are other ways to do it. We have an idea from martial arts where we have 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. And then we can design stepping pattern drills, which is really walking or fancy walking, to accommodate each one of these things. I'm personally stealing this idea from Aikido, Aikijutsu, and Jiu-Jitsu. Depending on how much injury you're trying to induce or not induce is how you would define those things. Judo is sport. Different types of jiu-jitsu are the opposite of judo, and they're trying to get people to not survive the falls. But the stepping pattern ideas are all the same. Stepping 90 degrees, stepping forward, stepping 180 degrees, stepping 270 degrees, and stepping all the way around 360 degrees, and then doing that both directions. So when we think about walking, this is an easy way to do walking in an extremely small space with a limited amount of equipment. So add that into your consideration of athleticism program design. Are we walking distance in a straight line, or are we walking in patterns in a small space? Very different ideas. If you're thinking about the context further down in Herbertism of defense, then walking is part of defense in every art that there is ever throughout history, because stepping patterns define martial arts. They define the strategy that you are using in order to move to a target or away from a target. Examples of that would be boxing uses more of a shuffle step for the most part, whereas Asian martial arts would use a cross step where they would just be walking or big fancy walking as opposed to shuffling. We can also take walking drills when we plug them into defense, and we can put them into OODA loop drills, and we can use drills in order to drive the type of walking that is done, forcing people to take certain types of steps, because most people have a preferential type of walking based on their history, based on their sports, based on other athletic training that they have. You can almost tell somebody's previous athletic training by the way they walk if you put them under stress. So ballet dancers move a very specific way. Modern dancers move another way. Asian martial artists move one way. Western boxers move another way. Fencers move another way. All of those different types of walking have been designed into their athletic training at some point. So walking, while it seems like a simple idea, is not a simple idea. It could be straight lines with a bunch of different types of load, back load, farmer's carries load, or tool load, or it could be walking in patterns for specific outcomes to specific sports. So walking on its own is a huge topic, and people will discuss walking patterns for literal years when it comes to the best way to walk to a target or away from a target, and then how to do that for each individual sport. It's a big idea. If you have questions about walking, let me know, and we will talk more about it. We're going to try to run through all of the ideas of Herbertism with an introductory video, and then we are going to take questions, and then we are going to tailor our videos to answer the questions that people have. Think of this as taking my basic core ideas and understanding of each one of the ideas of athleticism, and then we will expand on that with viewer questions so that this will essentially turn into a lecture series. I don't know if I'm qualified to lecture, but we're going to talk about it.